What's up YouTube and welcome to a new video. So 3 of the largest automotive channels in the US gave themselves a challenge. And that was to buy a cheap exotic car for less than the price of a base Corvette. If you haven't seen that challenge yet, be sure to check it out. It's a highly entertaining video which already got more than 2 million views. Now in this video I will show you if the cars which they bought were actually good deals and what other cheap exotics they could have chosen to enter the challenge with. But let's first see who is in the competition and what they bought. First up is Tyler Hoover, who runs the YouTube channel Hoovies Garage. And he entered the challenge with a 2002 Ferrari 360 Spider, which he bought for $54,000. Second then we have Ed Bullion from the Vinwiki channel, and he entered with a 2006 Lamborghini Gallardo. And this he bought for $59,000. Finally then we have Freddy from the Tavarish channel, and he entered with a 2015 Aston Martin Vantage, and that he bought for $69,000. And of course, he cheated a little bit by entering the challenge with that car, because the base price for a Corvette C8 is around $60,000. Now first we will have a look as to how the 360, the Gallardo and the V12 Vantage markets relate to each other. Then we will zoom into each individual market to figure out how good of a deal they actually got. And finally at the end of the video I will show you then which other exotics they could have considered and perhaps were better entries to the challenge. Now the 3 car markers are appearing right over here, where you can see that we have the model year on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. You can also see that each bubble in the graph represents a car for sale in today's market, and that the solid lines going through the graph represent the depreciation lines. Finally then, you can also see that the bubbles have 3 different colors, and that is because each color represents a different car market. You can see that in green we have the Ferrari 360, in blue we have the Lamborghini Gallardo, and then in orange we have the V12 Vantage. Now I will put the graph on the big screen so you can have a better look as to what is going on. First of all, you can see that the Vantage market is of course the newest, followed by the Gallardo, and then finally the 360 market. It is then also this 360 market which is the cheapest, as most 360s have a price of $84,994. For the V12 Vantage market this is $96,750, while this is $107,497 for the Gallardo market. Now let's quickly also have a look to the depreciation lines. You can see namely that on average the depreciation number is the lowest for the V12 Vantage, followed by the 360. And as you can see from the slope of the line, the depreciation is the highest for the Gallardo. However, you need to take some nuances into account when you're looking to these depreciation lines. And if you're interested in those, then I strongly recommend that you check out the full depreciation analysis for the Gallardo and the 360. And links for that are appearing right over here, and I will also make sure to put the links down below in the description of the video. And since we know now a little bit how the markets relate to each other, it's time to move on and to figure out how good of a deal they actually got. And to figure that out I will be using 2 graphs, the depreciation per 1000 miles graph and the relative value plot. The first one we will use to get a rough estimation of the market value, and the second one we will use to figure out how similar spec cars are priced. Let's start now with the 360 market, and I'm sure that it all becomes clear then. You can see now the depreciation per 1000 miles graph for the 360 market appearing right over here. And you can see that we have the mileage on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. You can also see that there are 2 depreciation curves visible in the graph, and that is because next to the mileage and the model year, the transmission type is a significant driver for the 360 prices. And again, if you want to know more about as to what drives the price of a 360, then I strongly recommend that you check out my full depreciation analysis of the 360 market. Now let me put the graph again on the big screen so you can better see what's going on. Now Tyler got a 360 Spider with an automatic gearbox and 29,000 miles, and he got it for $54,000. If we estimate then what price a 360 Spider with that mileage should have, then we can see that this is around $73,000. And of course, depending on the model year and the overall condition of the car, this price of $73,000 becomes higher or lower. Overall, however, you can see that $73,000 is quite a good average estimate for a 360 with an automatic gearbox. Now if you compare it then to the $54,000 which Tyler paid, then it of course seems to be the case that he got a good deal. There is however a very big but in here. The 360 which Tyler got was namely not a perfect car. And it is even so that before he entered the challenge, he executed about $2,300 in maintenance himself. Now on top of those $2,300, you can see in the videos that he should execute an additional $2,600 in maintenance and another $8,000 to fix the roof of the car. Now if we sum up then all the additional costs he had to make and add it to the original purchasing price, we end up at a total price of $66,900. And the question of course now is, how does that relate to the rest of the market? And that question we will answer by using the relative value plot appearing right over here. You can see that we have still miles on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis. Each car in the market is again represented by a bubble, and the orange cars are the automatic ones and the blue ones are the manual ones. And the larger the size of the bubble, the newer the car is. Now you can see that the largest bubbles represent the cars from model year 2006 and that the smallest bubbles represent the cars from 1999. Now what is so great about this graph over here is that we can consider all the important aspects for the price of a 360. Now if I put this graph on the big screen, then you can see that for a 2002 car, the price of $66,900, which is the cost what Tyler eventually had to pay, is definitely a price at the bottom of the market. However, considering the full market, $66,900 could also get you into either of these 2001 cars, which both have 20,000 miles. And assuming that these cars need less maintenance than Tyler's car, I would say that he didn't make a bad purchase. It is however not a unique buying point, as you saw that you can find other cars with the same price but with less mileage. So what about S. Gallardo then? Well, he got a 2006 car with 12,000 miles, and very important, he actually got a manual one. And all of this he got for only $59,000. However, just as with Tyler's car, quite some maintenance was necessary. On top of that, it is actually not a clean title car because the car has had quite some water damage. It probably also doesn't come then as a surprise that if we add up all of the costs which he had to make, we end up at a total price of $80,000. So let's see now how that compares to the rest of the market. Let's start by having a look to the relative value plot, and this is the same type of graph as what we used for Tyler's 360. And I by the way removed all of the special editions Gallardo so that they won't mess with the statistics in the market. Now if we look then at around 13,000 miles, which is the mileage of S. Gallardo, then we can see that there are a lot of cars for sale. Naturally, however, these are mainly newer cars, as you can see from the size of the bubbles. Also, you can see that these are mainly cars which have an automatic gearbox. I would then also say that the car which comes the closest to S. Gallardo is this 2004 manual over here, which has a mileage of 15,000 miles and a price of $116,500. Also, this other manual over here comes quite close, and this is a 2004 car which has 21,000 miles driven. The price tag is however a lot friendlier, as it is $89,600. Now the fact that there are so few manual cars for sale makes it of course very hard to assess whether or not Ed got a good deal. Nevertheless, at a price of $80,000 it would be one of the cheapest manual Gallardos on the market, and with a mileage of only $13,000 it also would be one of the lowest mileage cars on the market. And when there are so few cars for sale in the market, we need to rely to some extent on the trend lines. So let's have a look to the depreciation per 1000 miles graph. Now if we have a look to the depreciation line for the manual Gallardos, then you can see that it is surrounded by a large orange shaded area. And this area is so large because it shows the uncertainty in the pricing, resulting from the few observations. I would however say that S. Gallardo should be priced at the lower band of the depreciation line, somewhere between $90,000 and $95,000. After all, it is a car which doesn't have a clean title. Now given that the total costs of the car are $80,000, this is not a bad purchase. I'm however not quite certain if the cosmetic fixes related to the water damage are included in the maintenance costs. If not, then the deal of course becomes a lot less attractive. And on that note, let's move on to Freddy's V12 Vantage. Now his car was quite a high mileage example, as it had 32,000 miles. He however bought it at a friendly price of $69,000. You feel what's coming, just as with the other cars, so maintenance had to happen. And after that maintenance, of which $6,000 for a new clutch, the total cost would be $82,500. So let's dive into the graphs and see how that relates to the rest of the market. If we first look to the depreciation per 1000 miles, then we can see that there are very few V12 Vantages for sale, and none of them has such a high mileage as Freddy's car. And remember that that car had 32,000 miles. We can however extrapolate this depreciation line, and then we would end up somewhere between $65,000 and $80,000 as a price for a V12 Vantage with 30,000 miles. And with that in mind, let's have a look to the relative value plot. And if we look to this plot, then we can see that the high mileage examples are actually also 2015 cars, just like the one of Freddy. They have however a much lower mileage, and are priced at $80,000 and $83,000. And comparing those two numbers then to the $82,500 which Freddie would be ending up paying, I would say that it becomes very hard to actually sell the car for that $82,500. Now then, who got the best deal? Well, I would say that Freddie finished last because after all of the maintenance, I think he is least likely to get his money back. And a big reason for this is of course that the car needs a new clutch, which will cost him around $6,000. Now when it comes to Ed's Gallardo, it's quite difficult to assess due to the limited number of manual cars for sale in the market. Now on top of that, it becomes even more difficult because the car doesn't have a clean title due to the water damage. Having said that though, he for sure bought it for a good price. Now I do think then also that Tyler's 360 is perhaps the safest deal of the bunch. He namely ended up not getting a groundbreaking deal, but he for sure bought at the bottom of the market. And as a result, he might be able to sell it for a small premium after all of the maintenance. Now, when I was watching the video about the challenge, I thought that none of them actually lived up to the requirements. After all of the maintenance, all of the cars are namely significantly more expensive than the base price of a C8 Corvette, which is around $60,000. And that got me thinking, which exotic cars are out there in the market which you can buy for the same price as a C8 Corvette, but don't need $10,000 in maintenance? Now I looked into some data and I came up with the following cars: the Audi R8 V8, the Alfa Romeo 4C, the BMW i8, the Jaguar F-Type R, the Corvette C7 Z06, the Mercedes-Benz AMG GT S, the Nissan GT-R and the Porsche 997 Turbo. Now you can probably extend this list quite a bit further, but I aim to include only cars which actually look quite exotic. Now on top of that, I aim to create a list with quite a large variety of cars, so I included both old and newer models. Now let's have a look to those car markets. You can see first of all that all cars are available under $60,000 and that there's a large variety in terms of pricing and depreciation. Arguably, however, I think that someone who would order a Corvette C8 likes a newer car with as little maintenance hassle as possible. And looking to these car markets, it would leave us with the ones on the right hand side of the screen. These are namely the newer cars. And besides the Z06, which is perhaps an obvious car to include here, I think that an AMG GTS is a great alternative to a C8. It offers 510 brake horsepower and in my opinion it also looks the part. I would even dare to argue that it looks better than a C8, both from an exterior and an interior standpoint. Additionally, you can see from the huge slope in the depreciation curve that it already done a significant part of its depreciation, while the C8 of course still needs to take its first hit. Now I won't go through each and every car which you could see in the plot, because all of them have their own depreciation videos on my channel. So be sure to check them out. And on that note, we do arrive at the end of this video. Now if you enjoyed this video, please remember to smash that like button and to subscribe for more depreciation analysis to come. As always, thank you for watching and I'll see you next week.